Town Den. I'm joined this afternoon by Ciara Keeling, who's Chief Executive of Bruntwood Works. Good afternoon, Ciara.
Hi Chris, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Quick test then to start you off. Can you guess which Bruntwood building I'm in today? By the background.
I need to see, is it Neo?
It is.
Pass. Thank God.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time today for joining us. Can you just give us a brief overview of your career to date at Bruntwood and a bit of background on the company?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's going to make me feel old this now. So I've been with Bruntwood for 16 years this year. So I started as a graduate surveyor, predominantly working in asset management. So I studied in Liverpool. I recognise the accent, so studied in Liverpool, and then moved across to Manchester in 2005 and took position as a graduate surveyor. I've held lots of different positions, within Bruntwood Group over the years, and have seen the business, grow, evolve, and change exponentially over that time. So, in brief, worked in sort of general practice surveying, then sort of moved in 2008 when we had the great financial crash, sort of really focusing on sort of customer retention, really working closely with the customer bases around how do we facilitate them staying with us. Then moved into director of asset management, and then subsequently now a CEO of Bruntwood Works, which in essence it is the workspace retail and hospitality division of Bruntwood Group.
Excellent. So it was 12 months last week, I think, since WHO announced that this was a global pandemic. Can you cast your mind back to then and just touch on the challenges and the headaches that managing so many properties and also customers in sort of shutting down, and how that process worked behind the scenes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess COVID undoubtedly was a shock for all, and very many businesses. We had a lot to do, and really quickly, for all the reasons that you've outlined. We have so many assets, but equally, we have over 2,500 businesses, or sort of 50,000 people that use our buildings. So we knew we had to act pretty quickly. We went into the mode of, planning and pivoting, all whilst trying to adapt from working from home. I guess the biggest strength that we had is we were already quite well set up from working from home. We had good sort of systems and processes in place, so that was okay. But it was just not something that we like to do. We're quite a company built on being around together. It's all sort of built on being in our cities and our places. So that bit was very, very difficult for us. But equally, we had a lot of our sort of frontline teams making sure that they had to be, on site, getting the buildings, COVID secure, because there was a lot of customers that needed to continue to access the buildings for essential work. So, we went into, huge planning. It was unprecedented. But we had sort of regular meetings, regular catch-ups. We did like everybody did. We pivoted, and we had to make, fast decisions and be quite thoughtful and really maintain that communication line with our customers.
Biggest challenge to date in your career, would you say?
Absolutely. I thought having worked through 2008, 2009, 2010, etc. I thought that was tough, and then this is just a new level. But what I would say is, I think for every leader, we have learned a lot about ourselves, resilience, our teams. But yeah, it's been pretty challenging.
Yeah, so you mentioned obviously 2,500 customers, but you also manage a pretty big team now as well. So again, you mentioned you're pretty well set up for the home working, but Bruntwood has got a very strong culture and core values. How difficult has that been to manage working remotely, but also has it set you in good stead, having those set values and getting through the past 12 months?
I think it has. I think we have sort of bi-weekly huddle meetings just around touching base and making sure that, you know, we have those kind of touchdowns on the big important things. But in terms of when COVID hit, we were having daily calls around everything you can imagine, just making sure that you know, we were dealing with all the kind of legislation, the kind of what we needed to do around the buildings, what we needed to do around customers, what we needed to do around, you know, collection and all of those. So we were having very regular sort of operational meetings daily, but then we were trying to have that kind of team connection sort of bi-weekly. We also held regular, what we would call senior leadership team meetings across the entire Bruntwood group. And we tried to have those as sort of two-way as possible, and get feedback, what worked, what didn't work, and you know, tried to get a lot more staff engagement, because we just recognized that we weren't getting those face-to-face conversations like we would when we were in the office.
Yeah, and I noticed you did some pretty cool things. I joined pretty early on the Strava community.
Yeah,
so
Bruntwood Works out.
Like most people probably drank a bit too much during the early stage of lockdown. So I thought that was a great initiative, and one way, just one of the many ways that you've kept engaged with customers.
Yeah.
Which also has kept, you know, you've got the Bruntwood Collective also online, which has helped us keep engaged with, with those B2B introductions and so on. So that's been excellent. So just moving on then, you know, and looking a bit to the future, you obviously, you know, before all this kicked off, will have travelled into many of the cities that you operate. So what's getting you out of bed every morning? What's exciting you and the team of what Bruntwood Works and the company's got moving forward?
So I think the one thing I would say we have is a huge amount of optimism around our cities and towns. And we've made some pretty big decisions around investment, whilst many others have paused. So the kind of division that I looked after particularly is, you know, it's all about that interface of the office not just being a single-use space anymore, but how does amenity play in sort of what we would call our hospitality model, and all of those amenities, and really thinking around sort of space as a service. So we were on that trajectory, but we moved faster, and we made some pretty large decisions about, you know, we really do believe in the future of our cities, our spaces. So we kept moving and at pace. So we announced Block, for instance, which is one of our really exciting pioneer schemes in Manchester. We announced the Plaza in Liverpool. We were working on Cornwall Buildings over in Birmingham. So, and we're currently in the middle of planning a quite large intervention in our West One estate over in Leeds. Not forgetting our regional towns, we've done a lot of work there as well. You know, we, as you will well know, have ownership in both sort of city centres and equally sort of town ownership. And we've just kept moving. We've had to be quite thoughtful around pivoting some of our products for our customers. You know, we were thoughtful around how this might impact customers in terms of, you know, their bottom line, how they were going to feel around, you know, returning to the cities, and maybe how they would think about, you know, office space or retail space with a fresh set of eyes. So we haven't just created things for the sake of it. We've spoken to customers, but equally we have been thoughtful around enhancing our flexibility, rolling out our business support program, Spark, for instance, which was really there to help, you know, new businesses, you know, potentially people that hadn't been made redundant, you know, really access, you know, levels of support. And we did set up a COVID hub quite quickly, which is all around kind of directing and supporting customers access support from, you know, government or loan schemes. I mean, I could talk all day about what we've been working on. We haven't slowed down.
No, there seems to be an announcement every other week that I'm reading, but you know, it is great to read positive news, especially during the last few months. So, Bruntwood, you know, I'd say you'd always been pretty ahead of the curve, and you know, we use your facilities across the cities we operate, and the buildings we use. There's very much that community feel with the buildings. What feedback are you getting then from customers about, you know, trends that might change in the future? You know, back in March, everyone was saying the office is dead. That's not the case, and more people are wanting to get back. But do you think working hours will change? Getting people back into the cities and the transport and infrastructure? How are you working with stakeholders on that, and what do you see in the upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot in that to unpack. So let me take a step back. So I guess one thing I would say is the moment people aren't necessarily working from home, they're being forced to work from home due to a global pandemic, and I think ultimately things will change, and we are seeing an acceleration of trends that we were already seeing sort of pre-pandemic around hybrid working, people wanting to work more flexibly, people wanting to have a more flexible approach to office space. So it's definitely shifting, and it's accelerated our thinking in that space a lot. But really, we recognize that the office does have a place. There's multiple sources out there that will talk around the fact that people may use the office less, but they may use it for slightly different purposes, such as collaboration hubs or coming together for things that are just that little bit harder to do online. By no means am I minimizing the fact that things have changed, and that there's a lot of really good things that have come out of this hybrid working practice. So what we've got to do is really understand and retain the best bits, not just for our customers, but also for our colleagues. And a lot of that is about two-way engagement, and just recognizing what is it that people are missing, from their cities, from the office. What do they want to come back for, and making sure that we have those products, services on demand. And it's not space, but it's space as a service. And we've been thinking around that for some time. This, it's not new for us, but it's an acceleration for sure.
And what's the general sort of feedback you're getting on people coming in, and how we, get around our cities and into our cities?
We've done a lot of engagement with our customers, and we've also looked at a lot of kind of market surveys, and there's a lot of people really missing the cities. A lot of people really missing parts of the office. So some of the feedback that we had from a JLL study was that particularly sort of 80% of that kind of high performing I guess staff, employees were sort of saying that they really missed the office for sort of that productive working. And not everybody's set up to work that well at home. The office is an incredible equalizer for different people. And one of the things that we put in place throughout this is we had director calls, where basically one of us was always on call to take a call from any of our teams. And one of the most difficult conversations I had with quite a few of our team members was, some people are working from 1-bedroom flats on an ironing board, and the office is somewhere they come where they can feel that they can work in a good environment, and those things can't be forgotten. We will undoubtedly see shifts potentially around people thinking around using the city centre office for one purpose, and potentially some of the suburban offices for other purposes, as people start to think about potentially a hybrid working model. I think we're quite well placed because we have ownership in those spaces, but it's not city or town centre. For me, they can be quite complementary.
Yeah, and we are seeing more around that, not just in the workspace, but there is a lot more activity around towns now. Bolton, Wigan, just to name a couple in Greater Manchester that have big plans. So Bruntwood, again, it's all about community and creating great places, and we touched on cities there. And how important then is it sort of the F&B and leisure market comes back strong then in the city's recovery?
Yeah, I mean, we have quite a lot of customers, sort of F&B, hospitality and retail, and you can imagine they've been really hard hit. We've worked really sort of hand in hand with a lot of those customers, because they've really struggled. I think we all know that retail was getting a lot of hype pre the lockdown, and then obviously given the pandemic, it's just really it's really felt the pain. But one thing we would say is that's why we are integrating so much of that into our, into our buildings. So we've just recently announced, Ditto was taking space with us in Union, which is our HQ, and that's going to be, an F&B offering. So again, it's that sort of, not those single use spaces, but how we can work with our sort of hospitality, leisure customers and really provide that sort of all round offering. I think people miss going to these places, they miss socializing. People are naturally, I think, drawn to spend time with people, obviously on different scales, depending on the people that you reference. But for instance, Hatch is reopening its doors on the 12th of April. It's already, it's in terms of people wanting to book tables, it's sold out. And we've worked really closely with Afflex as well, around those trading businesses. How do we support those businesses whilst they've been closed and have been unable to trade? These are iconic places where people want to visit. But there's a big shift. There's a big shift coming.
Yeah, we've seen that on the event side, because we hosted a few small scale events when we come out of, was it lockdown 1 or 2? I can't keep up. And we got a bit of pushback then, sort of August, September last year. But now, as you say, massive shift in the way people are thinking, and everyone's just itching to get back out. And you notice the roads are quite busy coming into cities, but it still feels quiet. But there's actually nowhere to go, is there?
Nowhere to go. Yeah, I think that's the problem.
So hopefully, from the 12th, as you say, everywhere seems to be booking up quite nicely. So we should see our city centres more bustling out and about, and hopefully the weather picks up as well.
Yeah. And I think, to touch upon the point you made around sort of transport earlier, we've tried to be fairly thoughtful, around how we can encourage people to come back, into the city, in a green way as well, offering support around, bike schemes, car sharing where possible, recognizing, because we have people that, live together at work, obviously you can imagine, but we're trying to really encourage people to do it in a green way and, use public transport, because it is fairly safe, because it's not at the moment, it's not overused at the moment. And we've all, as leaders of the business, come into the city and find that, for a period of time, it's probably been one of the safer methods of transport, because actually there hasn't been as much usage, because people were nervous and they were thoughtful. But as we start to move, out to the other side of this, as people, start to, potentially take the vaccine and, recognize that, we're seeing a drop in cases, etc. I think confidence hopefully will improve, and people will feel, that willingness to come back into the cities.
Yeah, as I said, I think we can go live from May 17th with the event, so we've gone early June, and yeah, plenty of people are coming back and registering, which is good to see. Something we've missed massively. Very much, we're out and about meeting people all the time with what we do, and it's something myself and the team have missed. So yeah, can't wait to get back out there. So just on, I'll touch on this, because if I had £1 for every time someone asked me this, I'd probably be able to take early retirement. But Bruntwood, it's a huge beast now, and I get asked many times, how do we work with Bruntwood? And as I said, we touched on the culture and values of Bruntwood. So what do you look for in a business when looking at suppliers and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been around a long time, and I think a lot of people will, understand that, we are a very sort of values driven business, that just sort of comes from the family ownership. It's one of the reasons that I've stayed there 16 years, is that just it's really aligned, to my values. And I think that's what we look for in our partners and suppliers. It's that sort of two-way approach. And, it's exactly the same with our customers. Even throughout this, we've tried to work with our customers. Do we always get it right? No, not always, but what we try to do is always look at things from both ways and have that strong partnership approach. But really, from a supplier perspective, what we're looking for is values, I guess, ethos aligned, and values being quite at the heart of our supplier our supplier base. And, you know, we do tend to have quite long-term relationships with our suppliers. And one of the things that we also try to do, which is probably one of our, you know, USPs, is we try to get customers working with customers. And that's been really, you know, quite interesting, particularly on the Spark side of things, where, you know, people are going to seminars and they start to kind of connect, and then all of a sudden you've got customers working with customers. And I could give you maybe, you know, 4 or 5 live examples over the last 12 months where we've seen that happen. And then equally suppliers. And what we try to do is, you know, suppliers work really well with us, is, you know, we support them and they support us, and there's that sort of symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned Spark, and just want to touch on the Spark Summit. Have you had much involvement in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's taken, you know, a bit of planning. If I'm being honest, we really wanted it to be a live event. You know, we've been planning this for a while. You know, it's really about getting some of our, you know, customers being able to really tell their stories. And, you know, some of the businesses we have on there are really, you know, quite inspirational businesses, a real mixed bag actually, and just people telling their stories. And I think that storytelling part of you know, how people have grown their businesses, the challenges that they have faced, it's so powerful. And one thing, you know, we may see come out of this is we may see, and this will be, you know, an unfortunate downside, but, you know, people have lost, you know, some of their jobs. People may start their own businesses because they may have taken that step back and thought, actually, I'm going to rethink things. And, you know, we've seen a number of, you know, new startups approach us, or people wanting to take like a desk and grow. And that's our model. So hopefully with our business support program, and then, you know, things like our Spark Summit, that gives people the opportunity to tell their story and be inspirational to new businesses or younger businesses, or businesses that maybe just need that little bit of, I guess, inspiration.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it. Is it next week it's out?
25th.
25th of March. Yeah, it's well worth looking up.
Get it in the diary.
Yeah, it's in my
we're at the moment, we're just putting out some, you know, some teasers around some of the conversations and interviews that we've had with people like John Roberts from AO. You know, we've got JLR. We've got, you know, good lineup. So hopefully people will tune in and think that it, you know, it's a worthwhile event.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and it does just demonstrate again, you know, the strong sort of customer base and collaborations that you have across Bruntwood. So yeah, shout out to Heather Gray as well, who I think's been working alongside you on
absolutely that. Yeah, Heather's great, absolutely. And it's, you know, it's that sort of tenacity and, you know, really getting to know customers and actually, you know, taking that deep interest in their businesses, which I think is just so important, which is back to the point I make around that sort of partnership approach. And I think, you know, going back to even to your question around the suppliers, we tend to get quite embedded in our cities. It's very, we're quite a business that's, you know, we're in our cities and we go deep in our cities. And even when we're thinking around growing, it tends to be quite, you know, we'll continue to expand within our existing cities, because that's where we have our strong relationships with our partners, our stakeholders, our customers, etc.
Yeah, it is massively, and I think, you know, the public-private sector partnerships equally, and, you know, cities that thrive tend to have those the best. So what have you got upcoming this year then, in terms of have you got any more events planned? What are you looking forward to the most? What have you missed the most the past 12 months?
Oh man, I mean, we've got so much coming up. So we've got we're going to PC on Block towards the end of May, which previously for some people may know it as Lowry House. So it's one of our Brutalist buildings, actually one of my favorite buildings. So that's quite exciting for us. And that is where we've recently just agreed the deal with Brewdog, who opened their first doghouse hotel in England. So actually what we're doing around that asset, I think, is really going to transform that part of the city. It's going to bring quite a lot of interest to the cityscape. So that's exciting. In Liverpool, we will, you know, PC on the Plaza, which that's a really cool, interesting scheme for us as well, because that's really based around a hospitality on the ground floor. So the ability to work with, you know, a local F&B operator and really, you know, bring people in to historically what would have been an office building. But again, that sort of thinking around those spaces as multi as multi-use spaces is quite exciting. I'm personally most excited about getting back to the office. I miss people. People engage me. I get a lot of energy from the team, and I really miss those chance encounters. And hopefully, we've got that roadmap now. So we're on the way to, hopefully, if everything stays on track, getting back in.
Yeah, we're a stone's throw away from the plaza. We're in the Cotton Exchange, which is our HQ. So it's going to make that whole square. It's going to transform it, isn't it? Not just during work hours, but afterwards, I think, as well. So really exciting.
Yeah, and you've touched on a really cool point there, actually, because one of the things that we do try to do quite a lot is around the clustering of our assets. So, it's no surprise that what often we may do is have quite a large intervention in one building, but then the amenities can be utilized by our existing customer base. So you may find that, when we can and we get back to those sort of community events, that you should be able to, access the facilities in the buildings, because they're a stone throw away from one another. Cotton Exchange would be one of my favorites as well, just because of the heritage of the building. I love it.
Fun building. Yeah, we were in the plaza.
Yeah.
We moved into the Cotton Exchange 5-6 years ago now, I think. But again, especially in Manchester, you can't, looking at over the road as Manchester One, you can't walk past the building without it being Bruntwood. But again, it helps create that community feel. As I said, there's so much going on. Before we wrap up, then, just see if there's any questions for Ciara. I don't think we've had any. Is there anything you want to round up on, Ciara, before we finish off?
I think for me, I would just, the only thing I would say is just, I think most people probably understand what we do, but if there's any questions, I like to meet new people. I'm always happy to sort of answer any questions that we've got. If people are really sort of worried or thinking around or need some support about return to the office, let us know. We have a lot of support out there around return to work guidance. We have a design team that are willing, really to support customers around designing spaces for, COVID secure spaces. And I think ultimately just get in touch. We really do want to be there to sort of support bringing people back as and when they feel comfortable to do so. And just if anybody wants to follow up, I'm more than happy to take any questions or meet anybody that needs a little bit more information on anything we've discussed today.
Great. Yeah, as I've mentioned, we use yourselves in Liverpool, Manchester, and Birmingham, and the communication throughout has been second to none. All the buildings easy accessible and in a safe way. So it's been very reassuring. A couple of things from myself before we round off this afternoon. As I mentioned, our live events program is back from May. So do look out for invites. We've got the chief executives of Liverpool, Manchester and Leeds, Ronnie, Reeves and Reardon, speaking in Manchester, back end of May. We have our inaugural property conference taking place at the Belfry Hotel in September. So it's not quite but we're looking forward to that, and tickets are going fast for that. And then keep an eye on the website. There'll be plenty more announced over the coming days and weeks. And thank you for joining us this afternoon, and thank you for your time, Ciara.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye now.
Bye.
If you enjoyed that video, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel on the link below and be among the first to get to listen to all the latest interviews through the Downtown Den.